Welcome back, friends. Today's guide is on our newest limited unit, Miss Yui. You can see her over here on the screen. And I'm going to try to do the format a little bit different today to try to demonstrate the skills a little bit better as we're talking. Now, obviously, I can only do this when I have the characters, so some other videos may have to go back to the other format, but we're going to try something new here. So as always, on your way in, a like and a sub would help me out tremendously, and I would super appreciate it if you wouldn't mind doing that for me. Only takes a moment or two. But let's dive right in. So Yui is a electric single target DPS character, and the way that her kit works is it revolves around triggering follow-up attacks. And when these attacks go off, they can be quite damaging. And so her power is not as much on her actual per button press, but how many times you can trigger this follow-up. So I've prepped a battle here. I've only gone in and done a little bit of buffing. Now that we have something teed up here, let's talk a bit about her kit, and I'm going to show you these skills as we go along. So the first thing we really want to do is take a look at her base awareness. So if we pop in here, you can actually see the skills while you're in battle, which is pretty handy here. And so her awareness 1, and we'll talk about the other awarenesses later. When an ally deals damage with a skill, there's a 35% chance to activate Resonance. Now, Resonance is a really strange name for follow-up, but, you know, whatever, I didn't name these things. And so basically, she can do a follow-up. This follow-up is electric damage equal to 80% of the attack as follow-up, as we've been saying. Again, fairly weirdly worded, but whatever. After the follow-up, increase the target's next electric damage taken by 15% for 2 turns. So obviously, you want to get these follow-ups going, and as they go, they increase electric damage. So again, you get that kind of stacking effect going. So good base kit. The only real complaint that you're going to find here is outside of certain things like her highlight, it's only a 35% chance. And you can go through dry spells. I guess technically you can go through always hitting it as well. But this is, I think, effectively what the biggest complaint about her really is. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to the Should You pull. Let's look at her 2 passive effects. So the first one, Virtual Landowner, increase follow-up damage to shocked foes by 36%. And if you don't know what the shock effect does, it's an elemental ailment, and increase critical taken rate by 10% for 2 turns. So a really handy one, especially because you want her critting. And then her other one, Let's Go Together. When an ally has player 2, and I'll talk about that skill here in a bit, increase that ally and Yui's critical rate by 8% and attack by 8%. So again, you're really playing into that critical, and of course attack is just better damage overall. So these all form her kind of base walking in kit. Let's talk about her powers and which ones are more valuable than others. So first skill, and I'm going to do this out of order, by the way, but first skill, Electric Bomb. This is a single target attack, and of course electric. Deals damage equal to a percentage. If the foe is not shocked, there's a 61% chance to inflict shock on them for 2 turns. So she can apply shock. However, you want to try your best to have shock on the enemies already. If they're already shocked, increase damage by 30%. So this is actually not usually the first skill you launch with. You tend to start with skill 3. But for the sake of demonstrating it, that's what the power does. Let's go ahead and use it in this battle. You can take a look at what it looks like in action. So here it is, Electric Bomb. It's a single target attack. Pretty cute. Drops it off. Boom. Does some damage. We'll skip ahead. You don't have to see all these different turns here. But let's go ahead and cut into skill number 2. Skill number 2, Meta Dynamite. This is your AoE electric attack. Deal electric damage to all foes equal to a certain percent. Increase damage to the main target by 25%. Let me talk about that for half a second, because it's not just her that has this, note within her skills. Something to know is certain characters have additional effects or stronger effects based on who you have selected. So let's pretend there was 5 enemies here. If I'm picking just the person on the left, that becomes my main target. If I'm picking the person in the middle, that's the main target. So do take a look at your skills, understand if they have a main target effect on them, and if they do, make sure that you pick the main target that you want. So this power here, being AoE on a single target damage dealer, it's kind of similar to Joker. You're mostly going to use his AoE. For her, you're mostly going to use her single target. So in this situation here, you're not going to use this power too frequently in comparison to the other ones. She's really going to specialize in single target damage, but she does have that AoE for those moments that you might need one. And here's what it looks like. Now, obviously, if there's more enemies, it would also be hitting them. And so next up, let's talk about skill number 3. All right, so skill 3. Skill 3 is her buff that helps her with her follow-up attacks. And so this one here, Sparky Surprise, grant player 2 to one ally, this is her buff, for 2 turns and increases Yui's attack by a percentage. For 2 turns, when an ally with player 2 deals damage to a foe with a skill, perform a follow-up attack, dealing electric damage for a max of 2 times. So when you put this on somebody, basically the next 2 times they go out there and do damage, she's going to do a follow-up attack. Also increases chance to activate Jolly Cooperation by 10% for 2 turns, and Jolly Cooperation remembers her awareness. So if we look here, it's normally 35%. This is bringing it up to 45%, so a better chance to trigger this when other allies also do their attacks. So overall, probably her best power. And let's go ahead and see what it looks like, and then I'm going to attack with Closer so you can see what the follow-up itself looks like. So we'll go here, we'll pick the the power, of course. We'll go to Miss Closer over there. And now when Closer does her attack, you're going to see Yui follow up just shortly thereafter. So she did 1500, and then Yui's going to come in, pop in, and did, almost 8k on that follow-up alone. So you want her doing her 8k, or you want her doing her follow-ups as much as possible, especially when you've got her fully buffed and everything else. And then finally, we have her highlight. Let's pull it up here. On her highlight, increase attack by 29.4% in this case, and increase follow-up damage by 21% of attack for 2 turns. You want her, attack nice and high. Activate follow-up attacks after allies deal damage with skills for 2 turns. So you do have to launch their skills. One more, of course, is just an electric damage attack, and this always does the same thing for these thief tactics, which is, increasing your melee and ranged. But the important thing here is when she has this highlight in effect, she is going to do her follow-ups for every character that's attacking with skills for 2 turns. So it just gives a bit more guarantee here. And this was actually buffed compared to other versions. And in other versions, up until the next patch, you're going to get 1 turn. This is starting with 2, so certainly an increase over here. And you just saw the animation, that's what it looks like. And just for the heck of it, we'll run a couple attacks here, and you can see this going off with other people. So I use her skill 1, of course, and it's single target and whatnot. Closer, when we use this, we'll talk about rotations in a little bit, a later part of the video, but I just want to show you the follow-ups a bit more. And so there you go. She followed up on Closer, but Closer already had the buff on her regardless, so that was going to happen no matter what. But let's go ahead and do an attack with Soy once he's done all of his shenanigans here. And here we'll just do Icicle Hatchet, why not? And now you're going to see Yui come in and do her follow-up right after that attack there. So for 2 turns, you're really amping up how much follow-up she's going to do. But that's it. That's what the skills look like. That's what they, kind of start with. Let's dive into the character sheet, and I want to show you the different awareness levels. And then, of course, we'll talk about revelation cards, weapons, all the different things there. All right, we're back at the character sheet so that we can talk about her different awareness levels. So you've already seen, awareness 0. Awareness 1, increased critical rate of follow-up attacks by 20%. Increased critical rate by 10% after landing a follow-up attack on shocked foes. This is great. As far as awarenesses go for her, really doing anything to her crit rate so that she can crit on those follow-ups is really substantial to her damage. So if you found yourself in a situation where maybe you got a double pull, like you're in a good, good state for Yui. Absolutely great awareness 1. I wouldn't chase it unless she's your favorite character ever, but if you happen to have one, it's fantastic. Awareness 2. After performing a follow-up attack on a foe, increase attack of Yui and allies with player 2 by 10% for 2 turns, stacks up to 3 times. It's not bad, it's a damage boost. She's getting herself more attack, which is of course important, but your player 2 is either going to be a support unit or not a main DPS, like I'm using Closer right now. Is it nice to get them a little bit stronger? Of course it is. Anytime you get more damage, it's a good day, but this just isn't as powerful as what you get out of awareness 1. Number 3, you get a couple, skill ranks. Number 4, for highlights, increase critical damage of follow-up attacks by 40% for 2 turns. Yes, please. Crit rate, crit damage. I love those 2 things. Awareness 5, again, it's going to be another couple more skills. And then awareness 6, if only 1 foe is present, increase Yui's follow-up attack by 110% of attack. Follow-up attack deals damage equal to 25% of attack to all other foes. Pretty decent upgrade. Now, would I chase a Yui to A6? Not really. It just doesn't become a place where I think that this character is that valuable that I want to put that many duplicates in her. But again, if it's your favorite, you do you, and have some fun with it. But those are awarenesses. I think the most prominent one is honestly awareness 1. Getting that just really does substantially increase her kit. Regarding the weapons, I did go for her 5-star, but let's show off the 4 first. This is at base value, increased crit rate by 7.3%. So again, that's a good stat to start with. When performing follow-up attacks, increase electric damage by, a certain percentage for 1 turn, stacks up to 2 times. So again, it's just making your follow-ups better. So not a bad 4-star weapon, to be honest, because you're getting that crit rate on the 4-star, and she really does want crit rate. But her 5-star, let's talk about if this is worth it. Increase crit by 18%. So again, to compare at base levels, 7 versus 18, and you may not be chasing this all the way to, max. So this is probably what you're going to be starting with or using forever. So a good increase on crit rate. Increase follow-up damage by 26%, so a nice flat increase on follow-ups. When a follow-up attack is activated by an ally with player 2, so like you saw me using on closer, or by an ally dealing electric damage, so think about a persona on, I don't know, Wonder, or think about later down the line when closer comes and she has an electric attack, increase follow-up damage by 26% more. So the whole thing here is wanting you to use characters with electric, and it's just boosting your crit by that much more. If you're pulling Yui, this is a character that I really think you should pull the weapon for. To really get the most out of her, you've got to optimize her rotations, you've got to optimize her crits, and you really need her doing follow-ups and then just making those devastating. And this helps that so tremendously that this is a weapon I would recommend. So that's her weapons. I would go for the 5-star if I pulled her. I obviously did. And let's talk about revelations. So her revelation is really straightforward. There's only one set I would recommend here, and you see it on my screen. I just happen to be lucky enough to have it. It's the only 4 of these renewal cards I have. But if we look at the bottom 4 set, increase electric damage by 10%, obviously synergistic. 4 set, after allies use electric skills, increase own electric damage by 9%, stacks up to 3 times. And this is partially one of the reasons why you see me running closer, is I just have a chance to trigger this more. And then when you add the growth card for your space card, increase critical damage of resonance by 50%. Remember, resonance is a ridiculous word for follow-up. Basically, her follow-ups get 50% more crit damage. Yes, please. So this is the card set I would, highly recommend that you look at getting for her. As far as the main stats, as always, our first card here is going to be HP because that's how it works. For Moon, you're going to want either damage bonus percent or you're going to want attack percent. I happen to have a card that has attack percent. I'm happy with that, but I would probably pick damage bonus percent. In here, by the way, they call that attack multiplier plus. Another weird name. So you're not going to find damage bonus percent. You're going to find attack multiplier plus, strangely as it is. For star, this is where you want to have crit rate as your main stat. And if not crit rate, crit damage percent. I unfortunately do not have one, so I have a defense one because that's all I've got. And then sky, or I always want to call this planet. This one, you're going to want attack percent. Again, ignore the fact that I don't have it. It's just the 4 cards I have, so there's not much I can do here. And again, don't worry about cards until later in the game as far as getting yellows. Don't stress about it early game. Is it nice if you have it? Yes. But for your main stats, again, HP, attack multiplier plus, or you might hear us call it damage, bonus percentage, crit rate or crit damage, and then under sky, grab yourself an attack percent. And then substats for her are pretty traditional for a DPS. You want crit rate, crit damage percent, attack multiplier plus, or damage bonus percent as I like to call it, and then follow that up with attack. That's kind of the priority or order you want to get into. You want high crit on her. And like if I were to show you my character sheet on non-optimized gear, I'm already pushing myself to 40%. So even now I'm thinking about how do I get the most out of her. And if I had good card sets, this would be significantly higher, be much, much happier. But we get what we get at this point. As far as mental image, I know I usually cover that, but we don't have it here in global. I don't have her on KR, so I can't actually click it and show it to you. That said, I can tell you about it and what you'd want to prioritize into when it gets here. So first of all, one of her skill upgrades is critical damage percent. That's where I would focus first, to get that rocking, get that going before you move into your other things. After her crit damage, you want to go for the skill that includes skill 3. I think it's the second one. But either way, just look for the one that calls to her skill 3. And just to remind you, that Sparky Surprise, get that one built up next. Then you're going to move over to her other stat, which is attack percentage. Or you could look into the other skill one, which is going to increase your highlight. I'd probably go for the flat attack personally if I was going to build her with the mental image. And for those that keep asking what mental image is, it's something that comes out at level 70, at least in the other servers. I don't believe it's launched here yet. And the resources come for another mode in the game that's not here yet, so I'm guessing it will come later. But for the sake of the guys, I like to have it in here now. And so again, you're going to want to go for critical damage percentage. You want this skill that includes skill 3, and then probably the attack percentage up, and then the skill power that gives you things for your highlight. That's how I would prioritize that. But that's effectively, her kit and how you would build her, what you would look for. And now what I want to do is I want to go back into a fight, and I want to show you kind of how I set up a team. Now I'll preface this with, this is not necessarily the perfect team or the perfect rotation. I've done my best to try to speed tune as well as I can here to get characters going at certain points, but you could do things differently. You can look at, different personas. You don't have to necessarily put the people on where I have. And let me move my face for a second here. And so that way you guys can see. But if you look here, oops, let me get out of here. If you look here, you can see the personas I'm using. And this is when I'm in that level, 50 to 60 range for Wonder. This will change depending on what daggers you get or whatever. And so for now, with where I'm at, I like Yerlinger. This is the kind of electric worm that really helps Yui out. I've got Kiko Kuten or whatever his name is because I use him for a couple things, honestly. Let me pull him up here. And so for him, I like his inherent because at the start of battle, increase ally with highest attack by 14% and crit rate by 6%. I'm going to be pushing my DPS to have the highest attack. And then you can see I've given him speed so they can go first. And he has the natural crit ability for the team that he comes with, and I've put Rebellion on him. So for 2 turns at the start of battle, I can sit on him and give myself the crit buffs. And then for my 3rd slot, I oftentimes will use Yanosek here unless I have a really good reason not to. Look, you can make cases on like putting Rakunda on Yanosek. I actually have it over here on my Worm. And that's just so I can sit there and defense debuff while having him up so that I get this passive up here, which increases crit damage by percentage, increase foes crit damage taken by more if they're shocked. And again, this is really what you want Yui to be doing is critting on follow-ups on shocked units. And so for me, with where I'm at on this level range, these are the ones that I really like to run. We don't have the Palace 3 dagger yet. That would actually shift my build. So if you're coming in after Palace 3, you're going to want electric in your first slot because that's what the weapon wants, is it wants somebody to be the same element in the slot to give you elemental bonus damage. So this would have to change just by effect. And so I'd probably put Yerlinger up first, and I wouldn't need Kiko Kuten's kind of lead off ability. So that's how things will change as you go on. And so later, guys, when we have that, we'll be thinking about that and I'll presenting that to you, a different way to look at these personas. As far as my team, this is kind of the crux of Yui right now. She doesn't have a great team. It's not like where I can be like, oh, give Rin to Joker. So for her, Navi, as always, offense or defense, it's up to you. So you pick either Puppet or Okean, depending. The best support for her right now is actually probably Matoha because Closer is electric and she can apply shock and she can increase electric damage taken on the enemy. So that's why I have her in this slot. And then for your sustain, and you are probably going to need a sustain for this team because Closer is wicked squishy, is either Soy or you could go with like a Marion or another healer if you have it. I prefer Soy on this team because of his double defense down that he can do. So he's got his skill 2, I think it is, or maybe it's skill 1, but it's the one that does the physical attack. And then his actual gun itself will apply defense down. So it just gives a way to, allow more damage into the enemy. So let's go in here. I'll show a couple rounds on this. I don't necessarily think I'll take you through the whole fight. But as we go through, I'll show you how I'd set up a team like this. So typically I'm going to lead off with an icy defense, get some max HP so that Closer doesn't die so quickly. Because again, she can take a couple hits and then she's gone. And that kind of just ruins everything. Over here, I'm actually going to lead with Rebellion, even though it's the team one, because it just helps Closer now hopefully do something slightly better. And then on Yui, I'm going to start with Sparky Surprise onto Closer. So now I've got her ready to give me a follow-up. You could argue having her go last, but I don't think, unless you're like the super min-max station and you're really trying to push, guild scores, I don't think you're hurting yourself too tremendously by having Closer go after. Because now what I can do is throw Wrathful Thunder, which will give me shock on the enemy, whoever my main target is, and then I'm going to get a follow-up on a target that's already shocked, which just increases damage. So now you can see, you know, I just took off almost half his health on that, and he almost took off half my health in return. So that's how I like to set up. Now we'll just pop her number 3. That's just how you lead with her, basically. And we're going to go back into buffing. So this is kind of my turn 2, and I'm going to now hit that defense down, or debuff. If I get a follow-up, it's a chance, so it doesn't always happen. For Wonder, I'm going to now do the single target crit, because this does stack, and so I want to show that to you. If I go into my Yui now, and I pull up her stats here, you can see I now have a crit rate of 73%. I'm just really juicing this up, and this is before optimized cards, so she can get better than this, and 162% crit multiplier right now. So really good start getting into round 2. And I have an option here. I can either go closer and pump out some extra damage here, just kind of help out the team, or I can push myself into her highlight. The issue here is my next round, I'm not going to be attacking with Soy because he's going to be doing his max HP unless I want to, use his skill again. I will be switching over, and I would have the choice to use Eurlinger's attack, or I could go into Rakunda. So because I'm not going to go through a all damage phase next, I'm actually going to hold hers and use closers for this particular round. And then the next time highlight comes up is when I would actually use Yui. So there we go. It's all it's going to do. I'm not going to get a follow-up off of that because it's a highlight. And now I'm going to use her single target attack. And there we go. I think we just transitioned out of phase 1. Yeah. And so I'm always going to look for shocked. And right now there's no shocked. So on closer, normally on a skill 2, you're going to use the single target because it increases electric damage. But here I need to reapply shock, and so I'm just going to go right back into skill 1 for her. And again, I'm going to get a follow-up here because I have that buff on. Doing great damage. And then for Soy, I need that sustain. I need closer to not die. So, this is basically why I'm bringing him. Plus the defense down. And I am buffed on crit, and so now I'm going to actually come over here. And because I have shock, I'm going to actually use Rakunda. Oops, did I hit the wrong button? Make sure I got that right. I'm going to use Rakunda and go for that. If I didn't have shock, I would have gone for skill 2. We'll take some damage. Quite a bit of it. That's okay, because Soy is awesome and gets Desperado. And now I'm back in rotation. So now I need to reapply Sparky Surprise. It's always going to go on closer in this team unless she is face planting on the ground, which she does sometimes. And now that I have shock up here, I can go into Blitz Mine, and this will increase party damage for electric for 2 turns. So again, I'm just buffing and buffing and enhancing what I actually am here to do. We'll get a nice little crit, or not a crit, a nice little follow-up. And now I can use her highlight. Let me pop this really quick. Because I'm going to more of a damage round, I might actually want to use skill 1. And so now this means that whenever I do attacks, I'm going to do follow-ups. And so I'm going to want to attack with skills. And as I set up my last round with Icy Defense, I now have Smash Hit. So this is going to cause a follow-up. So we get the damage here, 21,000, not too shabby. Oh, I guess we phased him into the next phase. The only thing that's unfortunate here is I just lost his debuffs because I'm on a boss, but, whatever. And here, what I really need to do is take out our friend on the right-hand side, and so I'll target her. Got to get her down so I don't die. But we're still going to get the follow-ups because of the highlight. So this is a great time to output some damage, and now I can just go into, whatever I want to do, to whatever kind of rotation I want. Again, Moha, or actually, sorry, I'm on the wrong character. So for Yui, I'm going to go into her skill 1. I did get shock on that, which is great, because now I can do skill 2 again. Apparently I'm taking you through this whole fight because it's almost over. And I'm going to get a nice little, follow-up. Support-wise, we'll go back into skill 3. And so now with where I'm at, I could potentially play riskier, but I think they're too low on health for me to do that. And so I am going to go ahead and forego a follow-up here just to get a little bit more health on my team. And he's going to smack closer pretty hard. Thank you so much. Oh, he almost killed her. see what I mean? Like, she is squishy. Like, she is a liability. And I think for now, I'm going to have to go ahead and buff my crit back up because this would have fallen off by now. And so I'm going to have to lose, a little bit of extra there. And I'm going to have to go ahead and give myself a little bit of health here. So we'll go ahead and kill the character on the other side. And I think we'll just play it safe. I could do one of a couple things here. I can go for Sparky Surprise, which I think I will do. I could have gone for AoE, but at this point, I'm pretty sure Closer can take care of this. If she doesn't, then I'm in some serious trouble. but we'll see. So I think I go with Wrathful Thunder. I am going to select it on the main guy, though, so I can extend Shock. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Make sure you know who your main target is. And there we go. So she... Okay, she's going to do the follow-up there, which is nice. And then I should be able to take this out. I better... I wanted to hit him, but if he has 1 health left, he will absolutely demolish me. And so I think I'm just going to play it safe again. Come over here and take out our friend there. He goes dizzy. And now we're in a nice place to just do some damage. I'm going to set up her buffs again because they've worn off at this time. And unfortunately, he'll lose his debuffs here in a second when I phase him. But that's okay. And you see the rotation here. Like, I'm really thinking about, do I have Shock? I don't. Nope, so I'm using her skill 1. How do I get as many follow-ups as I can? Well, it's the highlight and keeping my skill 3 going. Those are the things that you really have to do here. And then, again, we're kind of in our last phase, so I'm going to pop skill 1. Let's get some extra damage on this phase, and then I'm going to go into her highlight first. It will not trigger a follow-up. And now, I'm actually going to go a little bit... Oh, no, he's going to get an attack off. I was going to go risky, but I don't think she'll be able to kill him, even with a follow-up, and so I just need Closer to live for another round. Sometimes phasing bosses messes up when they are in your turn order, which kind of stinks, but what do you do? What do you do? I am going to try to trigger a follow-up here. Didn't work. Didn't work, unfortunately. But I should be able to live through this and be fine. So we'll do our little final here. Get a Sparky Surprise. Closer will trigger a follow-up, and it should take care of our friend here. There's Blitz Mine. Oh, she took care of him anyways. So that's it. That's a full example of Yui. I ended up just doing the whole fight for you. So here's the thing. I guess we're in that kind of should you pull. I would still say she is easily skippable. She's fun to use if you like follow-up characters like I do. And so for that reason, I like her. She's got a cool, spunky-looking kit. She's a cool character. Absolutely cool character. But you're going to see her pump real damage right now during her content cycle, and then you're going to see her kind of fall off. And it's something to keep note of for basically all of your, various, I guess, new units, is they're always going to be good in their cycle because the bosses are built around them. And then afterwards, it's whatever the new feature of the month is, whatever the new character of the month is. And so you have to kind of decide if you can use them after that. Now, we have Foresight. And the Foresight with Yui is by the time she gets really great teams, there's just better teams to run instead of her. So she's great right now. She is absolutely going to top your scores on leaderboards. She can do a ton of damage. I think you just saw some of that, and you saw it if you watched my boss video for Palace 2. It makes it look like she's better than she is. That percent chance on her follow-up when she's not in her highlight mode for those 2 turns does really mean that you're going to go quite a few attacks at times without actually landing a follow-up because it just doesn't trigger. And then you have to think about who you're bringing with her. And I don't love that I got to bring Closer. It's not that I absolutely hate Closer or anything like that. It's just that as much as she helps with like electric damage and things, she's also a huge liability. She takes a ton of damage, and it basically forces you into a sustainer. And it can make it quite a bit harder to go as high in some score trials as you would with others. So Yui is good. She can do great damage with her follow-ups when they land, but she doesn't have like the best synergistic team in my opinion. And just the low percentage of follow-up when you're outside of the highlight mode really does hurt her kit. If that was bumped up a bit more, I think she'd be a different kind of conversation, but it's just frankly not. I also think that she really wants her 5-star weapon. And so if you're pulling for Yui, I really do have to say go for her weapon. And if I'm doing that, well, now you're committing more resources into her. It's not as much of a skip as I would say some other characters can be in terms of weapons. So should you pull, my recommendation here is only if you love the character. Do not look at other people's videos, even my own, and say, oh my God, look at all this damage. I'm going to get her because clearly everybody's wrong. Yes, she can do decent damage, but she's also in her cycle. When Fox comes out, he's going to look like an absolutely devastating character in his cycle, when, I don't know, Queen comes out, when so-and-so comes out, whenever a character comes out, they're going to look amazing in their cycle. Because again, it's tailor-made to make you want to buy them. And unfortunately, I think that after her cycle, there's going to be far less cases outside of maybe Velvet Trials for me to use her versus other characters coming in the future, or even like my On team. My On team is probably my most damaging team right now, or even my Joker team just being AoE and Curse. So keep that in mind. You know, I'm not going to flat out say don't ever get her. She's terrible, terrible, terrible. It's nothing like that. She can be very good. It's just that she really doesn't have a great place in the meta after this. And the next time we get a good electric damage character, he's just flat out better. Now, it's a long ways away, but I still don't think she's a must pull. I really don't. But take it with a grain of salt. If you want her, go get her. She is fun to use if you like follow-up characters. And that's really it. That's my perspective on our friend Yui here, as I have a fly buzzing into my glasses. I don't know if you saw that. And let me know what you think. Let me know if you pulled her. Let me know if you like the style of this, build guide. I want to try something different. Wow, sorry, this fly is like all up in my business. So let me know if you like that. When I have a character, I'm able to do that kind of a showcase. If I don't, then obviously I can only like read the powers to you. And yeah, with that, my friends, a like and a sub on the way out, again, will always help me out tremendously. And until our next video or live stream, please take care of yourselves.